It's an At the Office edition of the East Bank Sports Show, serving up the hottest sports takes from right here in Cleveland, Ohio. It's your hosts, Noah, John, and Erik.
It is your host. It's John. It's Noah. We don't have Erik. He's whining and dining some friends from out of town. We'll forgive him this time. But it is good to be with you, coming at you live from Cleveland on a chilly, rainy fall evening. Glad to be back with you, Noah, my man. How you doing?
Man, I am good, and it is good. As much as I love doing shows with Erik, and I'm sad Erik's not here, it is good to see your face back at the office with me. I'm excited and ready to get into the show. The Cavs are 9-0. I've had to rep my boy, Donovan Spider Mitchell, and I am ready to get after it and talk sports with you, man.
I am too. The Browns are not good, and we'll talk about that here shortly, but the Cavs have been hotter than fish grease, man. 9-0, taking down teams by 20 points. You work for them, so that's got to be awesome being in the building. Give me a little about how I was going
to say it's fantastic right now working there. We're sitting there done with everything. They're up 20 points, so there's nothing else to do, basically. It's been great. I am so ecstatic with the Cleveland Cavaliers and so happy to be a part of that organization and get to do what I do with them.
Yeah, I'm not ready to say LeBron who. He raised a banner, but it's a hell of a start. We'll take it one step at a time.
JB Bickerstaff, who Kenny Atkinson is the truth, baby. That's all I know. That's all I know.
I'm with you there. That offense looks unstoppable at the moment. We just have to pray for health, because if everybody stays healthy with this efficiency and this pace, they can run with anybody.
100%. And I'm ready to watch them run against and win against everybody.
Yeah. It's a long season, but any start short of 9-0 would have been worse. So just enjoy it and take it while it's here, and we'll handle the roller coaster ride of a season as it comes.
100%.
All right, brother. I know we can talk some Cavs. We could probably do that for 45 minutes straight, but we got agenda stuff we want to get to. Talk a little bit about Stefanski and the Browns and where they sit, a little bit about the Gardos and what their approach should be to free agency. We'll always do our final thoughts and takes, but we're going to get it started the way we always get it started. We're going to do our 30-second takes. Topic today is, are you happy with what the Browns did at the trade deadline? Noah, why don't you give yourself 30 seconds to start? You go first, and then I'll come in behind you.
Yeah, let's do it. I am 100% fine with the move of Za'Darius for the picks, selling for the season. Understand why there weren't many other moves because of dead cap and how the NFL trade deadline and contracts work. Said that on the show on Monday. The biggest move all around was, well, I'll get into this after because I'm going to mute myself and I want to hear what you have to say. But overall, in terms of the actual physical moves, no complaints over here.
Yeah, you can throw mine up whenever you get a second. I'm kind of in the same boat. The team is terrible. They're performing poorly. It's not fun to watch. And the moves at the trade deadline didn't do anything really to address it. I value draft picks less than your average human. First and second rounders, sure, that's how you build. Sixth and seventh, it's kind of like, okay, whatever. I trust the people in charge. I'm not disappointed in the moves. I'm disappointed in the team. It's fine. I do think that everybody seemed to really like Za'Darius Smith. I believe it was a captain on the team. So getting rid of a captain who everybody kind of gelled around. Did you mute me?
No, I was going to just let it go because today.
Getting rid of the captain that everybody gelled around is a little bit of a head scratcher for a sixth and seventh, but whatever.
He wasn't a captain. He was a locker room leader for sure. He wasn't like Captain Patch captain, just so you know.
Gotcha.
The thing I really wanted to get into was Andrew Berry had a press conference, his midseason press conference he does. I forget, it was either I think it was yesterday, actually. And the biggest move around the trade deadline to me had nothing to do with the actual trade deadline. It had everything to do with reading in between the lines of what Andrew Berry had to say. The first question that gets posed to him, of course, is how are you with evaluating Deshaun Watson's play? Where are you at in terms of that whole process? This time around, he basically said the gist of his comment was, oh, we're just worried about getting him healthy. We'll see what happens after that. Like, he went through a gruesome injury, blah, 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 blah. Basically punted the question and didn't really give an answer. Last year, however, when Deshaun Watson had throwing shoulder, surgery and a season-ending injury, his response and his focus was about the leadership and how great of a player Deshaun Watson still is and can be and the flashes. So if you read between the lines there,
they're off.
Okay, I'm with you guys, but I'm not going to completely punt on it yet. So I think that is a little moral victory that we can all take, that, for those who think that they're going to trot him out there next year as their starter, I think it's dwindling down more, and they're starting to go down the route that they did during the Baker era when they started thinking, okay, what are we going to do at quarterback in November and December when they decided to put Baker like they did then. What do you think about all that, John?
I think you're exactly right. I was watching, and I got to give the front office credit, because usually when things turn sour in NFL organizations, the stuff that's supposed to be private and kept tight-lipped leaks. People either get pissed or there's loose lips in the locker room. I mean, that's a huge organization of people who, let's be honest, most of them aren't all that old, maybe some immaturity and all kind of other stuff that goes into it. But when people get irritated, they start talking, and there's a number of reporters in Cleveland that would love to run with the story. And I haven't seen the Kevin Stefanski never wanted Deshaun and got it forced down his throat by ownership leak, even though that's what we're all relatively certain that happened. The only person I don't know about is Andrew Berry.
Well, to play devil's advocate, and me and Matt have talked about this on the East Bank Sports Show, our typical Monday show. I forget who the two hosts were on the Fan, but they were talking about how the Haslams were actually content with Baker, and it flipped the other way. And Barry and Stefanski were convinced seeing him because they didn't think Baker was the guy. Now, you can have whatever opinion about Baker being the guy, not the guy. That's in the past. There's no changing the past.
Unfortunately.
But it had that kind of stuff has kind of been talked about. But I agree with you in the whole where, normally you hear a bunch of stuff starting to fall apart. And, Myles Garrett's still courtside at the Cavs game, all smiley. And it feels outside of obviously the poor performance on the field, that everything off the field is business as usual for these players and these people. You know what I mean? Not that that's a particularly good thing, but the fact that, there's not drama per se is more so what I mean by that.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with your take too. I think the organization realized they made a mistake, regardless of whose decision it was and where it came from. Whoever said Deshaun Watson is the future here, that isn't true. Even if the guy were an MVP, coming off the injuries he's had and a snapped Achilles is a nasty injury for a mobile quarterback to try to come back from. And that's, like I said, if he were playing at an MVP caliber, and he was nowhere near it. He looked like he was just starting to realize what it meant to play quarterback in the NFL again. And now he's going to be all the way back to square one.
That boy went out there playing like Jamarcus Russell. That is my favorite comparison to make right now. He looked like Jamarcus Russell, in my opinion, solely.
It's one of my favorite NFL quotes of all time. So underrated when Al Davis is like, he's a good quarterback. Get over it. The late, great Al Davis.
Right.
He's not a great quarterback. We're not over it. And we got the same problem in Cleveland. But no, I'm with you, man. I think they're off of him as a starter. But then the question is, what the hell do we do now? Because we're capped out. We have all kind of roster issues. The sad part about it is I view this team, I don't want to overstate it. So let me caveat that. It's going to sound weird at first, and let me explain it. The Browns have moved themselves into this territory that I wished we would have been, where I call them like the Steelers, where, no, we don't have a shit ton of Super Bowls and all the other things like on the high end, but the steady as she goes, we're going to have a few bad seasons. We can weather the storm because we know at our core we have all the pieces in place. But the question is, are we going to be able to keep the pieces in place long enough to figure out the quarterback? You're going to have to get somebody cheap. Like, do you want to see if Justin Fields can play better, if the Steelers are willing to come off of him? Like, that's what you're looking at. We cannot go out and get another $20 million guy off the free agency lot to, come in here and play quarterback. We just don't have the cash. So bad season, but I actually am not all that down on the Browns, with the very big exception of quarterback play, and they just made a huge mistake this year.
I am going to table the rest of this until final thoughts and takes, because my final thought, my hot take, has to do exactly with everything you're talking about, the quarterback and all of that. So stay tuned. First of all, if you're listening live or on podcast, make sure you stay tuned to hear my thought and continue this. but not to take over the hosting duties that I have bestowed upon you.
Keep it moving. I get it.
Yeah, just so we can move it forward, so that way I can talk about it at the end where I have it set up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we're on the same page. I was about to bump us forward. And even though it's a different topic, it's the same team. First thing we wanted to get into was Kevin Stefanski. Browns came off another ugly loss. We've talked ad nauseum about quarterback play for the better part of since this podcast started, especially recently. Let's shift focus. Kevin Stefanski is kind of the guy who's like, he shouldn't be calling plays, but now he's not calling plays. And then when we get really mad, he rattles off an 11-win season. And it's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde a little bit. I don't know how much of that is his fault. But the question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being ice cold, 10 being chopping block, how hot is Kevin Stefanski's seat right now?
Yeah, so I want to give some context real quick, as I often do with the statistics and the numbers and stuff before we get into it, right? The first thing I want to point out is Kevin Stefanski, his resume, per se. And I know we've talked about it ad nauseum on the show, but just to go over it for those who are maybe first-time listeners and that kind of thing here at the office. Kevin Stefanski is 37-30 overall record as a head coach in the NFL. He is a winning head coach. He has 2 Coach of the Year titles, regardless of how much you value him. Shout out Erik, who is not on the show today, who does not value Coach of the Year titles whatsoever. He also has 2 playoff bursts in his 5 years as a head coach now.
He's 5th, yeah.
Yeah. He's also been extended already, as well as Andrew Berry. So there's that to factor into this whole thought process. Prior to Kevin Stefanski's era in Cleveland, the Cleveland Browns were 112, 239-1. 112 wins, 239 losses, and 1 since returning in 99 after the expansion draft. It is of note, however, to know that this team right now ranks 31st in offense, 15th in defense, and 30th in special teams. And I know we talk a lot about Kevin Stefanski and his offense and all of that, but at the end of the day, he is the head coach. He's the CEO of this team. So the fact that he has, pretty much bottom half in all 3 facilities of football. I know the defense is 15, so it's technically not bottom half, but it's close. You get what I'm saying? That is something to talk about this year. John, yeah, I want to ask you what you think of it first, because I'm curious to judge the room before I put a number, on the seat, warmthness, and all of that.
A couple of things you said really quickly. One, is Kevin Stefanski the greatest coach since the Browns came back? There's no question. But being the tallest munchkin still makes you short. 27-20 isn't exactly a beautiful record, but it is a winning record. So credit where credit's due. Also speaks to the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde that we talked about, to have won 2 coaches of the year and only have 7 more wins than losses shows you how good those good years were and how bad those bad years were.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that you said and that's semantics. I know you didn't mean it hard and fast, and I didn't take it that way, but you said Stefanski's the CEO of the company, or CEO of the team, and I would disagree. I think he's the COO. He owns the day-to-day operations, what we're going to do from today for the next year, but the owner and the GM are the CEO, and they need to be looking 1 year to 5 years down the road.
Okay, Mr. Corporate America, I know you're getting nitty-gritty on me now. You know what I meant, though. Continue on.
I knew exactly what you meant. It's not a disagreement. I used it to tee up my point, which is I think Stefanski's seat is like 4 out of 10. I don't think it's all that hot because I don't think this is his fault. The offense is not inept. The offense looks good whenever we have a competent quarterback. The team looks good when we have a competent quarterback. He gave up play calling, which was one big thing. If you want to fault him for something, fault him for not getting a better offensive line coach to replace the greatest to ever do it, who we lost, because now the offensive line went from looking like we had all pros across to looking like Swiss cheese. That's something we have to address. And if that was his call, maybe we could have done better there. But look at all the problems the Browns have and tell me which of those is Kevin Stefanski's fault. I'm having a hard time outside of the offensive line.
So I laugh when you shout out that number, right? Because the first number that popped in my head as I'm like thinking about this pre-show, when I'm writing up some of my notes, pulling stats to reference all of that as I normally do before show, the number that came into my head was 4. I was thinking of a nice leather seat in a car on a 60-degree day, a nice 4. And the fact that you shot 4 off the hip right away after I turned it around and kind of put you on the spot. I know you did show prep as well, obviously, but I'm at like a 4 to 5. Like the seat to me is not hot for Kevin Stefanski. I don't think it can be with the track record given beforehand with all those losses versus all those wins that happened before he showed up here. I know he hasn't had the greatest track record and all of that, but the more and more I see this thing play out this season and see, basically what they're saying, like example with the Andrew Berry comments that I was talking about in our last segment, I really don't think they're going to blow this thing up in terms of complete full-blown rebuild like we're used to from like 2012, where we fire the GM, the coach, everybody in the front office, the whole staff. I think you're going to see some tweaks. I'm looking at you, Bubba Ventrone, because you were supposed to be the special teams guru of gurus, and our special teams have been hot garbage since you have stepped in to this franchise. So I think we are going to see some tweaks. I know we were all
offense. How about that?
I was going to say, I know we were all up and excited after that Jameis Winston win against the Ravens with Ken Dorsey, but I don't know if Ken Dorsey's really a fit here anymore. And maybe we should go back to what was working the 4 years before that for the most part, before we got complicated with a Baker injury and a Deshaun injury and a Deshaun trade, all of that. And maybe just go back to what was working for us and stop overcomplicating it. And shout out my hot take, but I'm not going to give it away. Pick a guy and develop the guy and let that happen. That's just me, though.
It's a fair point. I would have gone higher than 4. My initial reaction was to say something like 6 or 7, and then I thought about it pragmatically. It could still be higher than that. The one big question mark is to something we talked about already. If Deshaun Watson was Stefanski's idea, that was his guy, he did want to go after him and get him. I think that turns that 4 up a notch. To what exactly, I can't say for sure, but that is a huge, expensive mistake to make. The other one that I would say that I think turns the heat down is the extension. Jimmy Haslam has money. Jimmy Haslam will spend money. He's not going to get tied to a coach he doesn't believe in because he has to buy him out or pay out his contract. But that said, you sign a guy to an extension to let him go 10,
the following
12.
year.
I mean, that would be a lot, right?
I believe that's the first year of his extension is next season, actually, too. So you're going to fire him after extent. I just don't see it.
No, it's not the Cavs. The Cavs do that kind of stuff all the time. I think they're still playing Paul Silas. That team pays 80 coaches at a time and doesn't.
I think
care.
Mike Brown's still on payroll, honestly, but that's just me. He's coached like 3 other places. I say all of this and I make all the points that we're making and kind of agreeing upon here, right? But at the same time, if we hit week 18 and we're whatever, obviously we're not making the playoffs at this point, but whatever that record is and we lose and win or whatever happens in that last game, I wouldn't be surprised waking up that Monday morning and seeing Andrew Berry, Kevin Stefanski, Paul DePodesta, and co. are all fired and they're cleaning house. Maybe that's just me being used to that kind of thing as a Browns fan, but as much as I lean towards 4, and I think that's why I put it out of 4, right? Because 5 is like a 50-50 chance. I think it's lower than not, but I think there's still a chance that they pull the plug on everything just because Haslam gets the knee-jerk reaction to do so, or, it continues to get even worse somehow. And I don't even want to know what that looks like because I still have tickets for the Pittsburgh Browns game on Thursday night right now that I bought months in advance. So there's no making my money back on that one.
They can still win. I mean,
yeah,
it's the NFL. Any given Sunday, this isn't a team that's so inept and so putrid every week that it's impossible. They beat the Ravens already, like 2 weeks ago.
John, you got to remember, though, if we're talking about this for a second, I went to the Giants game and I went last week. I have the worst taste in my mouth about being in Huntington Bank Field Stadium, whatever, right now that I just I don't know. I don't want to give them any more money right now. I don't even want to buy merch. I think the new Salute to Service hoodie and the white camo is dope as hell. Don't want to give them my money right now.
I get it. I don't either. Quick shout out to my wife as an aside. You're talking about going to bad games. She's the opposite. We're 39 years old. Have been going to games since we were single-digit age. She has never once been to a game that the Cleveland Indians/Cleveland Guardians did not win. We went to a 3-game series in Kansas City together in college. Sweep. We've been to playoff games, ALCS, ALDS, all wins. Yankees, Blue Jays. Maybe she's our good luck charm. I'll start a GoFundMe. We should buy her season tickets next year, see what we get.
I was going to say, it sounds like you failed as a husband for not bringing her to Game 5 and letting the Yankees beat us, but that's just me. I'm just putting that one out there into the universe.
Fair point. I thought we had it, but fair point. Maybe I am to blame. Next year we'll be there.
I think I said ALDS. I meant ALCS, by the way, just to correct myself. I do know baseball. I promise to all of you people listening right now.
Yeah, this guy has like a Akron Rubber Ducks Naylor jersey. He's into the baseball. I can vouch for him.
I worked for the Rubber Ducks, man. Of course I do.
Gotta have the merch. I wouldn't mind one. It's something to wear around. It's an interesting piece, a conversation starter, as they say.
My roommate, and I know we're getting off topic real quick. We can reel it back into the Browns. My roommate has a Rubber Ducks jersey as well. He goes to like 1, 2, 3 games a season over there. You get to sit behind home plate for like $15. You get the best view in the house for $15, and you're getting camera shots, and you're getting a bunch of free stuff thrown at you. Hell yeah. Minor league baseball is the greatest time of all time.
It is. I remember the first half of a night. We went to a Lake County Captains game in college, and it was $1 beer night, and you got them in souvenir cups. And I just remember dropping 20 cups dug down the steps in the parking garage after we were overserved by the 4th inning. By the time we left the game, like I said, I remember the first half, but I digress.
100%.
Yeah, to wrap it up on the Browns, Kevin Stefanski, in my view, is going to have to do something to lose it. This isn't his fault. We've seen what he can do with players who are capable. And out of 5 seasons, winning Coach of the Year twice every other year kind of means we're sort of kind of due next year. And that's the first year of an extension. If we get the quarterback thing sort of figured out, we could use the Steelers model of great defense, serviceable quarterback, make a run, see what we get. But I kind of like the consistency. I sat through 15 years of bad Browns football every single year. One half of one season isn't going to kill me. And the consistency and the continuity that it brings to keep the head coach, I think, is worth suffering through a bad season this year. Because I think when Stefanski has the right tools in his toolbox, he's a pretty damn good coach. Now, if next year this might be a hot take. I think Stefanski's seat gets hotter if we come out next year, win 11 games, and get our doors blown off in the first round of the playoffs again than it is right now at 2 wins out of 10 tries or whatever it is.
No, I could see that too, because then you're starting to ask the question, can he get it done when it matters most? And you're starting to evaluate a coach at a level that you need to as you start to get deeper into those type of runs and plays and stuff. But I'm glad you're hopeful that we can even get to that point right now, because right now we're throwing 3 interceptions to the Chargers and losing games and looking horrible no matter who's back there at quarterback.
Yeah, I am, because, and this is an arbitrary question, I don't mean to go into another rabbit hole, but just maybe with the last 30 seconds before we go to break, if instead of Deshaun Watson, we kept Joe Flacco and started him each game this year, what's the Browns' record right now?
What's the Browns' record right now? What are we, 2-6, 2-7? 2-7, right?
I think. Yep.
I don't know, 5-4,
yeah,
4-5, like somewhere in the middle. I don't think we're as great as people probably think we would be. I think Flacco cools off for us a little bit. I think he's just having that second rejuvenized run over there in Indy right now, because it's the second time Flacco Mania is happening.
Yeah. I would have said 5-4, 6-3. So we're right there in the same ballpark. So
yeah.
That's one position, one player that we didn't get. It's the most important position in sports. We say it all the time. You're getting shit play out of it. So it's not Stefanski, but all right, brother, we could go on all day on this one. We won't. We got to take a quick break, pay a couple bills. After that, we'll come back, talk some Guardians before we wrap up. But thanks for tuning in to At the Office. We'll be right back. All right, and we're back. Thanks, everybody, to listening. Before we go on, shout out to the Fanatical Elves. Go ahead, smash the like button. Tell your friends about us. We appreciate the people who listen, who stream on a regular basis. My sister's boyfriend, Antonio, has been listening. If you're listening, bud, we appreciate you too. But yeah, thanks to everybody who makes this possible. Give us a like on this show. Check out some of the other great content on Fanatical Elves as well. We'd appreciate it. Getting back to the topics at hand, I want to switch gears a little bit. Baseball season's over. I talked a little bit of trash with Erik because you two said that any sports team in pros that doesn't win a championship is a failure. And I said, no, they aren't. Look at the Guardians. Let's talk a little bit more about them. So we have an opportunity. They have a window, kind of like the window we talked about with the Browns, where they have a team that can compete. We had no Bieber. We had a lot of no-name players that nobody knew to start the year, and gave the Yankees all they could handle. Gave the Yankees more than they gave the Dodgers in the World Series, we'll put it that way. We got a good squad. We got a good core. We got talent. We spent a little bit of money on Jose and a few players, but the question is, what do we do now? Should the Guardians invest in a big-name bat or make a big splashy signing, a pitcher or with a free agent? Or do you stick with the kind of tried-and-true method that's been working for us the last 10 years or so, which is stay small, keep recruiting, keep drafting well, keep developing talent, and know that you'll always be able to compete in this division? So, Noah, you hit us off the first time. I think I'm going to start on this one, if that's all right with you.
Sure, why not? I mean, am I going to argue with you? Go ahead.
I'm the host.
I'm pulling the leg. Go ahead, my man.
I do what I want. This is shocking. This is shocking to me that I'm going to say this. So it's probably going to be a surprise to you. I rail on the ownership of the Guardians for sucking so often. And I think they do because I think there's a difference when it comes to retaining homegrown talent and shopping for free agents.
Right.
So if the question was, should the Guardians spend money to keep the really good players that we have, the answer would be unequivocally, without a doubt, yes. But when it comes to should the Guardians invest in a big name free agent, surprisingly to myself and everyone else, maybe, I'm going to say no. The first thing that this team has that no other team has is clear delegation of duties and buy-in, and they seem to like each other and get along well. It's hard in pro sports to have a core group of guys say, this isn't high school anymore, right? To say we buy into what the manager is saying, we do what we're supposed to do, and we enjoy spending time together like a true team. Baseball is an individual sport. You don't have to like the second baseman as the shortstop. You guys just got to turn double plays, and you don't even bat next to each other, sit at opposite ends of the bench. It doesn't matter. It's not like football and basketball. That said, this team was so successful because of the energy and enthusiasm with which they played the game. They played for each other.
The power of friendship.
Correct. They played for each other, and they played for their manager, a first-year guy that kept Tito's hustle. You don't see major league teams running out ground balls to first base, but the Guardians did that every game. You don't see them taking an extra base and stealing and working the pitcher. And they did all the little things in baseball that make a difference. If we had the money and we go out and add an Aaron Judge to that, and everybody says this guy's going to make $1 billion, almost literally, and doesn't care, or he's the superstar or gets all the attention, it could ruin it. And I think part of the reason the Guardians are good is that they don't have that guy. The only one we have is Jose Ramirez, and he took a pay cut to stay here. He's humble. So I don't want a big-name free agent to screw up the clubhouse. The other reason is it's not the NFL, man. You get a really good free agent in the NFL, you sign them, they still have gas in the tank, you're off and running almost immediately. A lot of baseball almost every baseball contract is terrible on the back end, even if it starts off good. King Griffey Jr. goes to the Reds, plays really well, and then career-ending injury after injury after injury. We got this guy who was 32 and thought he still had 6 good years left, and now he needs Tommy John, and we're paying him $41 million a year to pitch 12 games, and his ERA is 6. Baseball is harder. Baseball, you almost got to get the guy on his rookie contract, put him on the second deal, and that's when you want to get him. Hell, until this year, even Frankie Lindor to the Mets was like, hey, we dodged a bullet on that one, didn't we? Now he's come around now, but I just think in baseball, for you to say this guy's batting .311, and it happens for the Yankees and the Dodgers. Mookie Betts isn't going anywhere. Freddie Freeman. There's some big names where if they were available, I'd be like, oh my God, think about the Guardians with them. But to double our payroll and to cap us out and to restrict what we could do with the guys that we've grown here, I'd like him to pay the people that are good to stay here. I'd like us to keep Bieber, but I don't want to spend a ton of money on free agents. What do you think?
Yeah, so I kind of, agree with you. First of all, my biggest thing was going to be make sure we keep Quan as longest of long term we can, because that man is worth every penny, no matter how much he asks.
It's hit like 370 at one point this year.
Yeah, right. I mean, he was batting around that in the playoff. Anyway, I think this question's a little bit arbitrary because they're not going to, as much as we would be like, please do it, even if, you're in that mindset or not, like you are. I think it's very arbitrary. I picked this topic because I don't know if you use the ESPN app, but there was a push notification in the middle of the Yankees Guardians series that listed us on ESPN as one of the potential destinations for Juan Soto. Now, I think that is a drop in the bucket, far and away chance that ever happens. But it made me think, would they ever do something like that? Which then inspires the topic, and here we are. I would like to see them go out and get bigger names. I don't want to see like the 10-year, $1 billion contract names, but I want to see some moves this year. That's kind of where my head's at. I want to see some pitching moves. I think we really need to shore up what's going on in the starting pitching rotation at this point, whether that be retaining Bieber and hoping he stays healthy and adding another arm, or adding 2 arms and letting Bieber walk because of the health issues and him never really being back at that Cy Young level, even though he started off the year great this year in the 2 games we played before he was out of it. There's a couple different ways I really see it like that. And I just hope they do make more moves at more than anything and capitalize on the success that was this last season. I know they had a good season 2 years ago and then had a slump, so you would think maybe they'll have a slump this year, but this team feels different now. They're more seasoned. There's more stuff going on. They made it to the ALCS. It wasn't a wild card and then getting beat by the Yankees in the ALDS like it was in 2021. I just think the opportunity to juice up this team just a little bit more and go back at it again and potentially make the World Series is there. And, as much as I want to harp on the Dolans and be like, I don't think they're going to spend money. They've been spending more money recently with Jose, with buying at the trade deadline and the Cobb and the Lane Thomas. Lane Thomas worked out, Cobb not so much. Extending Jimenez when they did. I mean, we're doing more of those moves that we used to make fun of them for never doing. We used to let everyone walk. Hell, even re-signing Josh Naylor, even though I think there's an argument to be made not to, and to let, sign and trade him and let Manzardo and John Kenzie play first base. I think there's still an argument to keep him because of the locker room, or should I say the clubhouse, because we're talking baseball. I just hope they juice this roster up. I'm not saying we need to go get Juan Soto, but I don't want to be looking at the 38-year-old pitchers who might have a 1.3 ERA game left in the tank. I want, some tried and true. And I don't know those names. I didn't pull those names off the top of my head. Still super early for all of this with arbitration and how MLB free agency works and all of that. But there you go.
Yeah, I'm with you. I want to see us do some things a couple of things that other teams do, and then something that I think we could do as a mid-market team with a cheap owner. The mid-market team with a cheap owner move says, do you want to bring in big name free agents? I want to bring in medium name free agents, right?
Right.
I want to go to the Houston Astros and go, who's your ace? And they go, it's this guy. And go, okay, well, who's your number 4 starter? Can we sign him for $11 million a year for 3 years?
Right.
Go to the teams that have really good deep rotations who might need some of the prospects we have in the farm system and say, this guy is a certified number 4 starter for the Phillies, but on any other team, he'd be a 2 or a 3. Give him the $18 million a year for 3 years to be a 3rd starter and round out the rotation, because Bieber's going to come back and we got to assume and hope that he has it, because you're not going to be able to pay an ace. The other thing that other teams do that I really like to see us get involved in is, and I know this screws up our balance, because the Guardians have a really good farm team. We keep staying competitive because we keep just pulling up talent every time somebody good leaves. If the Guardians come out next year and there's 7 games up in the AL Central, before the trade deadline, and it looks like we're going back down the same road. We're going to head into the Astros or the Yankees in the ALCS. I wouldn't mind us renting a player. If we got this close this year, not drain the farm system, but we got a ton of prospects. Give up a prospect or two that you think, the next Frankie Lindor, to go get, what's the dude's name from Detroit who pitched lights out all year?
Scooble.
Right. Like if Scooble's at the end of his contract, the Tigers know he's going to get $1 trillion. They don't want to pay him, and you can give up a shortstop and a pitching prospect to get Scooble for one push. We have reason to believe that could get us over the top, right? So maybe that's not the guy. Maybe that's not the exact position. But if you could, Giancarlo Stanton's contract is up and the Yankees look like shit and he needs someplace to go to play 60 games before he gets all this money from the Dodgers, Cleveland would be a really good place for him.
No, I agree. And I was kind of hoping they'd do something like that this season, and I knew they weren't because it's, the first time around with this. But I really do think this team is heading towards that route of being, I want to say, special for the Guardians. You know what I mean? Because they haven't won a pennant in how long? A World Series pennant, I should say. But special in terms of back-to-back playoff bursts for the next couple years and making runs. And who knows what that looks like, if it's going to be a, World Series win or a berth or anything, or if they're going to always be in that, ALDS wild card. Regardless, I just would love to see them do a rental like that. And I know you're using Scooble and Stanton as like examples because we don't have those contracts in front of us, nor do we know what that's going to look like, in the long run. And blah, blah. But yes, I agree with you full-heartedly that we should start doing rentals. We should start looking at these medium-sized free agents, and we should be okay with moving off of a couple prospects because as we continue to move down this, Lane Thomas is another year in Cleveland. We still have Chase DeLauder to come up. Benzana, who we drafted with the first overall pick, who is going to be a fantastic player for this team. There's a lot of stuff that's going on in terms of the minor league. And I'm not saying we should trade DeLauder or Benzana. I think those are still untouchable because they're your top prospects. But getting rid of some of these guys that are in between, I don't remember his name right now. He's in Akron. He's literally like 22. He's another big name prospect for us. He's from the Dominican, I believe. I can't remember his name. I apologize for that. Someone like him, maybe. I don't know. I'm spitballing right now because it's still so early in the MLB free agency and offseason cycle that is from now until spring league. But yeah, I think we should hope and pray that they do make a couple more moves. And I think there is some good signs from this front office and the Dolans that they'll do a little something at least with, buying a little bit at the trade deadline, extending some of these big names such as Jose and Jimenez, hopefully Quan in the near future, and continuing to move forward that way.
Yeah, it would be great to see. I got a follow-up question for you before we go to hot takes and start thinking about wrapping up here with the Guardians. So you're GM and you're evaluating this team and you say, okay, and a little bit of context here. I think the Dolans, and this is something I can't fault them for, even though they are cheap, they're waiting to see us do it consistently before they make one more big investment or make those big moves. Because if we got that close this year, then we turn around and win 85 games, come in third place, and don't make the playoffs next year, that's not it. So if next year trade deadline comes or we look like we're going to make another playoff push, we're one of the best teams in the AL. I'm okay with him waiting, but if next year that's the thing. You look at our starting roster, and you can address two positions. Where do you think we need the help?
Starting roster, pitcher right now, if we're talking, right this very second again, before we know any type of the moves. Starting pitcher, and I love you, Bo Naylor, and I love Austin Hedges, but we need to add to catching.
Oh, my God, you killed it. I thought for sure because Bo was your boy, you weren't going to say it, and I was going to say, you're going to kill me. But at this point, we should DH for the catcher and let the pitcher hit because this is wild.
Yeah, no, he hasn't grown in, and I still love Bo, and I still hope, he comes out and gets hot and, shows the flashes of what I saw in him when he was in Akron when I worked there and when I'd go watch Columbus games and all of that. But, if we're looking at everything we've seen from this last season and we're going to go out and pick two positions, it has to be starting pitching and catcher. Brian Rocchio came into his own in October, and I love that man now. I've always liked him. He was one of my favorites in Akron. He used to wear the some custom Jordan Off-White 1 cleats. So I was always a fan of him. His little walk-up where he dusts the bag with his feet. I don't know if anybody's ever noticed that. I used to work cameras at Akron, so we'd have to get tight shots of them doing their walk-ups. So I know how all their rituals, what swings they're doing. Regardless, you could say shortstop is still maybe a need here, and you maybe want to go out and get someone like that if we were going to do an honorable mention or third, or say, starting pitching looks great, or Bo comes out and bats 300 or whatever hypothetical you want to put out there. But yeah, if you're sitting down and looking at it, it's starting pitching and catching. I'd ask you the same question, but it sounds like you're going to give me the same answer, right?
I was going to say too, I always say I'm wrong more than I'm right, but I remember some of these little takes I've had over time. We had a question about, would you take Frankie Lindor back? And I said, we have Rocchio who plays pretty well. And Erik looked at me like I had a third eye in the middle of my forehead.
We both did because he was shaky, and then he was a Gold Glove finalist at least.
That's what I was saying. He plays great defense. I know he's streaky at the plate, but in my mind, I keep Rocchio at shortstop because if Rocchio is the worst bat in your lineup is a lot better. There was a point during the playoffs where I think it was Hedges against the Yankees got a base hit. I actually think it was a double for some reason, but regardless, he got a hit, and the announcer said, "This can't be right. That's the first hit for a Guardians catcher since September 20th." And it was like October 11th. And I was like, uh-oh. Like, this is not good, right? We need some help there. So,
yeah, I remember seeing, real quick, I know you're trying to push us forward or whatever.
Keep going.
I remember seeing all over X when we were in the playoffs and everything, like people posting their suggested lineups, like what they think we should do in terms of, the 1 through 9 in batting order for the next game. And it was a trend for like games 2 through 5, really, for the Yankees series, that it was, your 1 through 7. Number 8 was just listed as sacrificial catcher bat. And then number 9 is just like Brian Rocchio.
Yeah.
So
I'm right there with you on that stuff. I don't know. I don't know when it became fashionable. Like, I think baseball more than any other sport gets like hyper analytical and keys in on positions that don't really matter. Closer is one. It's super important to have somebody on the mound who has it together between his ears who could finish games for you. But if you have a good relief pitcher, anybody who's a good relief pitcher could go. I don't think there's nothing to it. A closer matters, but not as much as people say. The catcher who calls a good game and plays good defense is one of those things. A backstop is huge. You don't want guys getting on first and getting to third because the catcher can't block anything. And he has to have rapport with the whole pitching staff. I don't want to say that those things don't matter. But I grew up in an age where, like, guys could do that and still hit 300. Like, right. I grew up watching Pudge Rodriguez, Sandy Alomar, Mike Piazza. Don't tell me 130 is all you get out of the catcher position. That's bullshit.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And
that was oh, my God, so many.
That was my hope. Now, I'm not talking 300, but my hope was to get a power bat at the catching position because we needed a power bat. You kind of have a rotation of that now with John Kenzie and company. That was kind of my hope with Bo getting called up because he was a home run guy. He led off for a lot of the minor league teams because he was that hot of a bat in the minors. So I was hoping he could come in and, maybe be between 220, 250, somewhere around there, serviceable at least compared to some of the catching we've seen over the last couple years in Cleveland. Unfortunately, it hasn't panned out that way so far, but he's still only got one full major league season under his belt. So maybe there's still time to turn it around and we'll see that. And I hope so because I'm a big fan, obviously, but yes.
Yes. I'm with you. All right, brother. It's about that time. We're about 45-minute mark. I know that's what we aim for. Been a great show. It's been good catching up with you. Why don't we wrap it up with hot takes? What's on your mind, Noah? What do you got for us?
The moment we've all been waiting for. I teased it in 30-second takes to bring it all around. This is a hot take because it's still early in the college football NFL mock drafting season. And again, every time I give a hot take, I reserve my right to be wrong. The Cleveland Browns sit at number 5 right now in the 2025 NFL draft.
Feel bad for the 4 teams worse than us, by the way.
Oh, me too. I don't anymore, though, because me personally, if it came down to it, I would trade up for Cam Ward. I am all the way in on the Cam Ward experience. He reminds me of Jaden Daniels. Jalen's still in the NCAA right now. Jaden Daniels, the quarterback for the Washington Commanders. And I want every part of Jaden Daniels 2.0 in the orange and browns. The orange and brown. The Browns sit at number 5 right now. If they need to trade up to go get a quarterback named Cam Ward, say that's second, third, fourth, whatever, depending on how this shakes out come April, I'm here for it. Both men were journeymen in the NCAA. Daniels was at Arizona State for the first half, finished his career at LSU. Ward was at an FCS, then Washington State. Now he's playing at Miami and is playing lights out. I see a lot of great things in Ward's game that I think could translate well to a Kevin Stefanski offense, A. B, in a modern day NFL. That's my take. I'm very high on him right now. That could change. I reserve the right to be wrong and change. But right now, that's where I'm at.
I like it. I'm with you. I don't know if he's the guy, but figure out if he's the guy. That's what you're paid to do in the front office of the Browns and go get him. The other good news is I don't think the Browns are going to have to do much to tank and to move up the charts. You got to think that, well, down the charts, up the draft list.
Right.
You got to think like all we got to do is get to like number 2. Like, let's say Carolina is the worst team in the league. They just drafted a quarterback. They're not going to go number 1 pick quarterback 2 years in a row, even though he doesn't look great so far. They're going to have to see how that plays out.
Right.
There's 2 or 3 teams worse than the Browns, and we got a harder schedule and a harder division. Like, I don't want to say tank for him, but if that's your quarterback, tank for him. Like, I'm there.
I'm
we're
all
2-7. It's not like we're holding on to a 3-4 with some. It's over.
Right.
Yeah,
for sure. Go ahead, John. Let's hear yours.
2. First one is been super busy lately. Haven't watched the Bucks and some of the sports teams all my lives as much as I wanted to. And I saw the first playoff bracket come out. And I was all excited because the first round it's not really playing, but the first round of the playoffs, the higher seed gets a home game. And I'm like, okay, well, the Buckeyes have a tough loss. They're probably going to be in there. The Buckeyes are ranked like number 2 in the country, but the number 5 seed in the bracket because you have to be a conference winner to get a top seed. That's a mistake.
Yeah.
And it's not because it's the Buckeyes. It's because there aren't, in any given year since I've been alive, there aren't 4 teams in the country better than Ohio State. It certainly isn't true right now, and for them to drop that far down, I thought was kind of BS. Now, that said, if we get to host Boise State at the Shoe, I don't think we have much to worry about. But still, I thought the Buckeyes, and I think all of those teams that are, SEC and Big Ten 1-loss teams should at least get considered to go in there. Like if I look up and I see Georgia and I see Oregon and then the Buckeyes, and I'm like, okay, you know what? Alabama and Clemson in good years. There's Texas, fine. If BYU gets into the top 4 and the Buckeyes have to play a first-round game, that's not how this should work. So,
I agree with you selfishly, Ohio State-wise. I disagree with you because it gives the chance, and this could be a whole topic at this point, so we don't got to start bickering. It gives the chance for these smaller teams to go on a run. Will they? Probably not. But I like the idea of giving the underdog a little bit of an advantage if they do so well that they're, say, 12-0, 11-1, and conference champions. And an Ohio State Buckeyes team is 11-1 and don't make the Big Ten championship or something. You get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do. I think that's a fair point. We should come back to it because I don't disagree. Because one could easily look at the Buckeyes and say, well, if you don't like being a 5 seed, you should have beat Oregon. And I'd be like, those are facts.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my first hot. Maybe it's a warm take now because I'm already coming off of it, but I still don't like the fact that the Buckeyes are 5. I'll just make it a homer take now and stop lying about it. I want the Buckeyes to be out of the first round. Second one, sometimes we keep it fun and light, sometimes we keep it serious. This is going to be a little bit on the serious side. Had a national election. We knew going into it that no matter what happened, half the people in our country are going to be really mad. Half the people in the country are going to be really happy. Regardless of what side you're on, keep the faith, keep being civil to each other, keep taking care of each other, keep being good Americans. Our politics are broken, but we aren't. And the hate and the rage that everybody who voted for Kamala feels and the euphoria and joy that everybody feels for Trump will subside, and we all have to coexist together regardless of what they do. So stay informed, rock the vote, feel all the feelings, but don't let it ruin your day. This too shall pass, and Americans are resilient. So keep being good to yourself and each other.
Couldn't have said it better myself, man. It's been a pleasure doing this show with you. I've had a lot of fun doing this. Take us home. I'm ready to go home. Ready to take a nap.
That is another excellent edition of East Bank Sports Show at the office. Noah, it's good to be back with you too, brother. Like I said before, check out the other guys at Fanatical Elves. Smash the like button if you haven't already.
Subscribe.
Thank you for listening. And subscribe, yes. Thank you for listening wherever you are. And until next week, take it easy, Cleveland. Go Cavs.